Travis Wingoodsell. So, this morning, which I did the video last night, I dropped another bombshell about Joseph Smith's history. For those of you who've been following for the past 5 years now, should have seen it coming. The subject is apocalyptic literature. Apocalyptic literature contains three main elements to qualify. One, you have a messianic character, a Christ, a superhero, a superheroine. They can be women. You have destruction presented by angelic or messengers. And then you have supernatural acts. That's all that's required to qualify apocalyptic literature as apocalyptic literature. Because of the supernatural involvement, it is not real. And oftentimes people use that to justify a future, as oftentimes there are signs in the heavens that accompany it, and thus, yes, it is in the future in those cases. The book of Revelation has astronomical signs in the heavens that, using a stellarium program, we can identify exactly the day and the hour of when they are to occur in the heavens. Joseph Smith, in the revision of the Bible, let's see, Joseph Smith translation, go down to Revelation, and actually, let me do that. He made some changes as he was working with Sidney Rigdon on this, so Sidney Rigdon could also be involved. However, this is information that was known to Joseph Smith Sr., but I'm not going into that for this video, as I've already done those videos. There are some changes, as verse 5 had been moved up to verse 3, where the sign of the woman is the sign of her giving birth, not just her conception. And as I did the video not too long ago, as I learned about December 4th, Revelation 12, December, verse 4, the 4th. Interesting. So now verse 3 becomes verse 4. And there appeared another sign in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 crowns upon his head, and tail grew the stars, and that's been bumped. As verse 3, I found it back in December 17th, 2017. It was the 5th dark day of Hanukkah. It's the dark day because that's the day when the moon is new. So it's completely dark. Thus the dark day. And that sign about the 7 heads, 10 horns, specifically, is the difference. And then the 7 crowns upon his head, the corona borealis, was in play on that day. But this December 4th, it's the 5th day of Hanukkah again. So I thought that was curious. But the sign is not the same. There obviously is a similar sign, as it is right there at Apocalyptic still, but it's a bit back because we're going forward in time, and so things are creeping backwards. So if you are unfamiliar, if you go to the 2,000 years previous, the first sign, you don't look for September, you would look for August, because it creeps back after so many centuries and millennia. But you also see there are stories involved here. The signs in the heavens are likened unto apocalyptic literature. And so his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. That's the quadranted meteor showers. That was on the 2nd of January 2018 at 10:02 p.m. Wonder what was going on in the church at that time. Wonder if somebody fell. And so these are the things you look for apocalyptic literature. And yes, Revelation is apocalyptic. It says it in the name of its book, Apocalypse, which translated is Revelation. But then there's the question of, does this have to do with prophesying into the future of events on earth? Because in verse 1, it has the prepositional phrase added, in the likeness of things on earth. So that the signs in heavens are the sign of an actual event on earth. So like the stop sign, it's just a sign. But we as drivers have to therefore stop. We then become the fulfillment of the sign when we stop at the line, according to the stop sign. That's how Joseph is saying this is going to work. And so, yes, like I said, for the part of the tail drew the third part of the stars from the heaven and did cast them to the earth, yeah, there was an event on earth. Yes, indeed. There was one for the sign of both the conception and the birth of the woman. The sign of the dragon, it sort of snuck by everybody. But, fun stuff, huh? This shouldn't be new to anybody, but who else is covering this? Nobody. And so, when we get to the Joseph Smith history, we have Joseph Smith, real guy. He's talking about his history. My father, Joseph Smith Sr., left the state of Vermont and moved to Palmyra, Ontario, now Wayne County in the state of New York, when I was in my 10th year or thereabouts. He's leading us to believe this is his actual history. And then we get to the build-up, where historians, not church historians, real historians, are finding out, hey, no, these events did not occur or at least did not occur at the time Joseph is claiming them to have occurred. And so there's an anachronism going on, or Joseph Smith is doing something else. I already gave you the clue in the intro here. It's apocalyptic literature. And so this whole thing about the religious revival movement and the Baptists, Methodists, and the Presbyterians, which were the three main groups that Joseph had dealt with in his life. The Baptists were Sidney Rigdon's religion, which specifically the Baptist Campbellites. The Methodists were little Emma Hales. She was actually a year older than Joseph, so she was a cougar. And that's her family were Methodists, and so the real church historians, not the church historians, will tell you all about Joseph Smith, his firstborn dying, and he and Emma go and attend their church, her church, for comfort. But Joseph Smith got arrested on the 20th of March, 1826, and so the Methodists, knowing this, wanted nothing to do with Joseph, and therefore he and his parents-in-law, family-in-law, had to leave Harmony, Pennsylvania. And that sort of threw a wrench into a certain book publication that was going on, as Martin Harris took the book and ran back to Palmyra, where he was on the anti-Mason committee. Sort of left out in this Joseph Smith history. Wonder why. And then the Presbyterians, he was the pastor that officiated over Alvin's funeral back in 1823. So that's why those three are referred to. And if you don't know real church history, you're not going to catch it. But again, this isn't a real history. He's setting up apocalyptic literature. And so, he reads the Bible. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. And so then there's a destruction, the Lucifer version, which was not included in our canonized version. That was taken out of him wrestling with the unseen force. It does touch on it, but let's see if I can. Thick darkness gathered around me, and it seemed to me for a time as if I were doomed to sudden destruction. So yeah, there's a little portion removed from the original that was not included here. And so that's important to understand, because here you have destruction by an angelic messenger, and then you have other messengers who come down in a pillar of light, the supernatural event, which the wrestling with Lucifer also is a supernatural event. And so then who's the messianic figure? Joseph. Just like that. It's got all the elements of apocalyptic literature. And so then we continue on. And Nephi, not Moroni, need to restore the original, not the claim that Joseph Smith didn't know what he was talking about. He's wrong. So Nephi appears to Joseph Smith. And what does he do? Tells him about a book that talks about destruction and tells him quotes from the Bible about destruction. So again, angelic messenger, Joseph as the Christ figure, the messianic hero of the story, and then a message of destruction, with the supernatural event being the angelic floating and Egyptian gold plates. You've probably heard of other accounts where Joseph talked about not a salamander, it was a frog, and then he tried to reach the plates and they sunk down into the ground, and demons, and all apocalyptic literature. They just, for the 1838 version, decided not to put that part in. And so that explains that. Didn't happen. Everybody should know that. Joseph is not a witch. This is apocalyptic literature. And so let's go to the Book of Mormon. The big controversy. Is it a real history? Mormon apologists say yes, and testify that it's true. Testify that Jesus is real, even though Constantine made them all up. And so, we have Nephi. Oh, the one who came to Joseph. Isn't that interesting? But you have a time setting, right around the Babylonian captivity. And so Lehi now is being introduced as the messianic character. And he has a dream and sees supernatural events, as they're actually signs in the heavens. So we know exactly what these dates are that are being given to us. As we see in verse 8, he sees 23rd September 2017. And in verse 9, he sees 8 April 2024. And then verse 10, he goes back to 23rd September 2017, and even refers to the 12 as stars. And so what is this Emmanuel? Because that's the sun at noonday in the Egyptians, for Emmanuel, the name of the messianic hero. Well, he's now the angelic messenger to Lehi, who's the messianic hero. And he comes down, gives him a book, has Lehi read it, and what do you know? Destruction of Jerusalem by Babylon. Ta-da! Messianic or apocalyptic literature. So that should solve all problems. Mormons can stop going around telling everybody it's history, and ex-Mormons can stop telling everybody it's fake news and it's a fraud, and Joseph was just out trying to get money, because we now know that this is apocalyptic literature. So simple, so easy. And so you can apply this measurement standard into the Bible. So when you go into the Bible and you read about, Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed, sure enough, messengers talking about destruction and messianic heroes and supernatural events. And then, the Gospels even. You have a messianic figure, the Christ, who's Jesus instead of Emmanuel, and supernatural events, which everybody mistakenly calls miracles. The miracles of Jesus. He walks on water, he heals the sick, and casts out demons. And then, of course, there's destruction. outright says, hey, this temple's going to be destroyed, and in 3 days it will be built back up again. And so yes, he's murdered. Just like Samson, which is not in the 5 books of Moses, but still in the Old Testament, in the book of Judges. Samson likewise, Sun King, Messianic hero. Supernatural events. They sort of have messengers. He does riddles and stuff for the messengers, and one messenger told him about the death of his first wife and her father, and those are also signs in the heavens, the deaths. There are 3 sets of deaths corresponding to 3 days of darkness of the latter days, because we know the date because they're signs in the heavens. The first one, the death of the lion, was 21st of August 2017, and the deaths of his first wife and her father by fire is 14 October 2023, and then his death, knocking down the Philistine temple, is 8 April 2024, just like we saw from the Book of Mormon, which comes from the Book of Revelation in chapter 19, verses 11 and 17 specifically, as you see the death and war part mingled among it. So, yes, Scripture is apocalyptic. There's very little history. They talk about certain time periods, claim there are certain characters in those time periods, but here's Joseph coming right out and telling you this is exactly what he's doing. And section 45, he's talking to, O ye people of my church. So is it Presbyterians, Baptists, Methodists? No, Mormons. And so he's going to, let's see, verse 15. Wherefore hearken, and I will reason with you, I will speak unto you and prophesy, as unto men in days of old. So just like the Bible, both the New and the Old Testaments, he's going to prophesy in like manner. Apocalyptic literature for section 45. And so what does he use as his template? Matthew 24. Notice he takes out, no man knows the day or the hour. Gone. But because he tells us, desolation shall come upon this generation as a thief in the night. Which, if you're familiar, I did that whole thing with you, leading up to the 22nd of September. I stopped it. You owe me. At least view my videos. You've never thanked me. Groundhog Day. And so yeah, it talks about Jerusalem and the Jews and the Christ, but it's not. And the Jerusalem temple, but it's not. Because Joseph Smith is talking to Mormons and prophesying with apocalyptic literature. That's it. You now can interpret Scripture correctly, and your homework assignment is the apocalyptic literature in section 101, starting in verse 43. And I'll give you a hint, your Sunday school lesson that you had last month was completely wrong. But I did that video explaining my disgust for that.